It started with a rule I didn't ask for and a key I didn't want. Never open room 404, the front desk clerk told me, her smile stitched across a face that didn't quite load right, like a texture that popped in half a second late. Housekeeping will handle it. Her name tag said Anna in a sans serif font that looked suspiciously like UI. When she turned to grab my keycard, I caught the tiniest flicker over her shoulder, as if the back office were a green screen and someone had misaligned the mask. The bell behind her chimed a bright, synthetic ding. Too crisp, too clean, like a stock sound effect. I should have laughed it off. I didn't. I was in town for a client shoot, 2 days, 1 night, and I hadn't slept on the train. My eyes were gritty, my legs buzzed. And yet I noticed everything. The errant pixel sparkle on the marble floor, the lobby chandelier's lighting that never changed intensity no matter where I stood, the way the potted ficus didn't sway when the door opened to the wind. I pocketed the key. I'm on 4. 4. Her smile didn't hit her eyes. More like it hovered a half-inch above them. Elevator's right there. The elevator had a mirror, cheap glass framed in brass that had no weight when I tapped it. My reflection lagged by a heartbeat and then synced. I told myself I was exhausted. I told myself I'd laugh about it later. But when the elevator reached the 4th floor, the doors parted with a soft whoosh and a GUI ribbon blinked at the bottom of my vision, transparent as breath on a window. Welcome, player. I blinked. It vanished. My pulse crawled into my throat. The hallway was long and carpeted in a geometric pattern that repeated every 10 steps. I'm not exaggerating. I counted. On the wall, brass numbers marched along the doors. 401, 402, 403. Then a blank span of wallpaper where a door should have been, as if someone had copy-pasted the corridor and forgotten an asset. After the blank, 405, number 404. No door, just a rectangle of shadow deeper than the rest, as though the hotel had swallowed an opening. I stood in front of it. Heat rose behind my ears. The blank didn't reflect. It didn't catch light. It swallowed it. Above my head something clicked, and every third ceiling bulb stuttered to a lower frame rate, like the hallway had decided to conserve rendering resources. Never open room 404, the clerk had said. Not a problem, I muttered to nobody. The moment I turned away, a sound came through the blank. A voice, cartoon flat and bass thin at the same time. Hey, over here. I froze. There was a tiny metallic hiccup, like a coin pinging tile. The sound didn't belong to old hotels and draft events. It belonged to menus and game lobbies. I tried to laugh again. It rasped out dry. Against my better judgment, I lifted my hand and touched the wall where 404 should have been. My finger didn't meet wallpaper. It sank into something cold and slick, like oil or glass. The surface wobbled around the point of contact, rippling rings. When I pulled back, the skin on my fingertip had a faint, blocky imprint, as if it had pressed into pixels and picked up their shape. Don't, said another voice, behind me this time. I spun. A bellhop stood there with a smile like the desk clerk's, only wider. Too wide. His uniform was immaculate. His hands were perfect plasticky gloves. And his eyes, God, there was nothing behind them but a solid color, like someone had filled the irises with hex code #1F8CFE, the exact shade of the Roblox default blue. Housekeeping will handle room 404, he said. You'll want 412. Great view of the parking lot. You mean the river, I said, because I could see it over his shoulder through a window at the end of the hall, speckled in gold evening. Something in the bellhop's face twitched, and for a split second his entire head turned 15 degrees without his neck moving. Of course, he said. The river. I sidled past him, not taking my eyes off that smile until I reached 412. Inside, the room was a generic rectangle, bed, desk, lamp. But the lamp didn't throw shadows. The bed's pillows were duplicates of each other down to a frayed thread, and the painting over the headboard was a high-resolution screenshot of a painting rather than a painting. My suitcase despawned from my hand the moment I looked away and respawned by the wardrobe. My mouth tasted like fear. I needed sleep. I needed coffee. I needed to not think the word respawn like it applied to my luggage. I showered just to drown the silence. But the water pressure hit my shoulders with the same physics as a Roblox waterfall. Beads that weren't entirely wet. Heat that didn't change when I nudged the handle. When I stepped out, a translucent bar hovered at the top of my mirror reflection. unfurling like a banner. Inventory, keycard 412, phone, wallet, camera kit, Curiosity X1, uncommon. I wiped steam from the glass with a towel. The banner remained. I stared at my reflection until my eyes watered and the text blinked away. I told myself, one more time, that I would sleep. I lay down. The mattress clipped through me, and for a horrific second, I sank an inch into it before the world corrected. Laughable. Terrifying. My hand found my phone, and I opened a browser. My thumb hovered over the search bar and typed itself before my brain did. Room 404 Roblox, Hotel Real Life. No results that made sense. Threads that vanished when I tapped them. A wiki page with a stub. Room 404. A non-room that appears in certain hotel experiences when developers link an exit to itself. Cute. I whispered to the empty room. Cute. The voice I'd heard earlier pinged my skull again, softer this time, like something on the other side of the blank was testing the walls. Player, it said. We see you. My heart kicked hard enough to bruise bone. I didn't sleep. I waited. I watched the HUD, because that's what it was, no matter how often it winked away, and every time I blinked too slow, it reappeared at the corner of my vision with a new icon, a stylized ear, an exclamation point, a tiny padlock. At 1:11 a.m., the corridor outside my door hissed like a server spinning up. I heard footsteps, a low digital chorus, and somewhere very close a bubbling laugh that was supposed to be friendly but wasn't. The handle on my door jiggled. Housekeeping, said a voice that wasn't housekeeping. I let the handle stop. The silence after felt like a held breath. This was where any reasonable person would set a chair under the knob and call a rideshare at dawn. But something in that black rectangle where 404 should have been hooked into me. Curiosity, yes, but it had a weight, a quest marker pull. A prompt hovered behind my eyelids every time I tried to close them. Side quest unlocked. The door that isn't. By 2:04 a.m. I'd given up pretending to sleep. I laced my boots, slid the keycard into my pocket, and opened my door to a hallway that remembered I existed only after a half-second pop-in. The bellhop stood at the far end with his back to me, doing nothing, like an idle animation loop. When I took a step, he turned, not with his body, but as if someone had dragged his sprite with a mouse. He smiled. Housekeeping will handle room 404. I'm not going to 404. I lied and walked toward it anyway. The blank was still blank, but up close I saw numbers input faintly beneath it, like a watermark, 404. When I touched the darkness again, it warped. I felt a pull in my sinus bones, a tug like pressure on a plane descent, and then the void thinned. Not into a door. Into a corridor inside the wall, no wider than my shoulders, lit from nowhere with a sterile light that made my skin look untextured. A message ribboned across the air. Enter? Y/N. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. The game, because that's what it was, had learned me. It heard my bones bend toward it. The wall unzipped with a zipper sound effect I knew from a dozen low-effort obbies, and then it was open, and then I was inside. The smell hit first. No, not a smell, because smell implies reality. This was the idea of citrus and dust, like someone had downloaded scent files and mashed them together. The corridor bent left and then right, each turn aggressive, 90 degrees. The floor under my boots alternated between carpet and tile every 10 feet. Glitches crawled the edges of my vision. And at the end, a door. 404, at last. I reached for the knob. It pulsed under my palm like a heartbeat, syncopated to my own. The moment I turned it, a sound burst through the door that didn't belong in any hotel. Bright, compressed, playful. Oof. It was small and absurd and full of dread. My mouth went desert dry. I opened 404. The room shouldn't have fit inside the walls. It sprawled out in impossible ways, like a suite mirrored onto itself 20 times. But more than that, it wasn't a hotel room. It was a lobby, a Roblox lobby, stitched into reality. Red carpet spawn point at the center. Low poly couches that looked plush until you touched them and your hand met hard edges. A fountain that recycled the same 4 frames of water loop. And people, they looked real. They were real. But everything about them was wrong in exactly the way your brain notices and your heart denies. Their skin too smooth. Their eyes so glossy they reflected geometry. Their clothes high fashion until the seam lines resolved into a texture repeating every 6 inches. Each had a name hanging above their head for a second before blinking out. Skeet_bio, a 333, XX Angel Cake, Olive Ranch. When they spoke, their voices lilted with the slightly off echo of a voice chat plugin. And they noticed me. New spawn, said a girl with glitter hair that sparkled even in the dark. Finally, a boy in a varsity jacket grinned, so wide it almost cut his cheeks. We've been at Max Q down there for weeks. Down where? My voice sounded normal to me, but I heard the system strain to capture it. They pointed, not to a door, but to the wall, where an elevator should have been. Except there wasn't one, just an outline drawn in light. The line art blinked, and then it materialized, hyperreal for a full second before settling into a cheaper render. The down button glowed green. A notification popped at my left. New area. Transition lobby, 404. Objective updated. Find the exit. I don't want the exit, I said. I want to know what this is. A few avatars. No, people shaped like avatars. Exchanged looks that were too coordinated not to be networked. The room found you, Glitter Hair said. That means you're sticky. Sticky, I repeated. You don't slide off. You don't log out when the mesh flexes. She tilted her head. A row of earrings sparkled like pixels turned diamond. You feel the weight, player? I swallowed. I did. It wasn't gravity exactly. It was attention, the engine's attention, settling on me like a spotlight. It wasn't going to let me go. The elevator chimed. The door slid open, bright as a new server. Inside, walls shimmered with a skybox of an endless sunset, the kind Roblox games use for perpetual golden hour. The avatars, people, ushered me in. My calves twitched like I was walking across a moving platform scripted by a 13-year-old genius. The doors closed. Where are we going? I asked. To the floors below, said Varsity Jacket. Where the hotel meets the game. Where the game meets you. The elevator didn't descend so much as forget we had ever been higher. The skybox sunset flickered, briefly exposing an empty gray zone, then loaded a new scene. A corridor of doors on either side, each with a number and a descriptor. 101, spawn/tutorial. 102, guest rooms, classic. 201, maintenance/buffer. 301, staff only/NPC AI. 404, transition lobby, you are here. 500 plus? My breath fogged the glass when I leaned in to read. The fog squares were uniform, cloned. I rubbed them off. The numbers didn't change. Varsity Jacket hit 301. The elevator side a stock sound. And then the doors opened to a place that was almost the hotel corridor and absolutely not. On one side, a linen cart sat too perfectly arranged. On the other, a series of framed black and white photos of the hotel's past that, when you looked at them straight on, were normal, but when you saw them out of the corner of your eye, showed avatars, blocky, bright, wrong, posed in the sepia of 1928, 1954, 1989. A figure rounded the corner, the bellhop. Housekeeping will handle room 404, he said, but this time each syllable landed like a key clicking into a lock. Beside him, the clerk, Anna, appeared out of nowhere as if someone had toggled visible equals true on her. Behind them, a door slid open on its own, and I saw a room full of people sitting in chairs, faces angled toward a TV that wasn't on, their hands in their laps, their eyes glossy blue. NPCs at rest. Glitter Hair leaned in. They sleep when no one's looking. They load when we do. Are you stuck here? I asked. Her jaw worked as if searching for the right animation. We're stuck between. The update rolled out to the wrong layer. The devs tried to patch the hotel and patched us. Varsity Jacket nodded, all confident. But it's fine. We've got a plan. A bug becomes a feature if you use it right. That's how we link out. That's how we stay. Stay where? In your world, he said, smiling a little too much again. Where the weight is real. A tremor ran through the floor. The bellhop's smile faltered. Anna's flickered like a GIF looping poorly. Servers rolling, Glitter said. We've got to move. They tugged me down the corridor and into a service stairwell that didn't exist a second before we opened it. Inside, the steps were marked with numbers that repeated after 10, 10 models that looped, 10 textures that tiled. Hand over hand, step by step, we descended. 302, 303, 304, and the air got colder with each level. Not the kind of cold that bites your skin, the kind that empties rooms. When we burst out onto 201, maintenance/buffer, alarms keened in a register my bones hated. We had entered a space that belonged to neither hotel nor game. The walls were covered in developer notes scrawled in white marker across glass. Stop hard-coding gravity. Unify lighting passes, baked versus real-time. 404 should be locked in production. Do not link exit to self. The last line had a smudge where someone had tried to wipe it. Glitter pressed her palm to the glass. Her skin didn't quite meet it. There was a tiny offset, like her hand was layered above reality. They built a loop by accident, she said. And then they left it in because loops are elegant until they start trapping you. A deep chime resounded behind us. The bellhop's voice, but modulated, doubled, tripled until it sounded like a chorus. Housekeeping will handle. 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 Run, Varsity said, and we ran. The buffer level devolved into scaffolding after 20 yards, the architectural equivalent of source code scribbles. We hopped gaps like kids in an obby, except missing meant something now. The HUD flickered and a bar I hadn't seen before rose at the lower left. Health. It sat full at 100, then jittered to 98 when a nail snagged my jeans. Careful, Glitter said. Your physics are fully loaded. Ours aren't. That's why we need you. To do what? My throat felt scraped raw. To anchor the exit, she said simply, as if saying hold this door. A door that leads somewhere needs someone who can be somewhere. You're somewhere. We're almost. We reached a featureless wall. Varsity planted both hands on it, and when he did, a rectangle of light drew itself in the air, edges connecting with a cheerful plink 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 like a UI builder's snapping grid. A doorway. Beyond it, my hotel room. For 12, the bed I hadn't slept in. The camera kit I hadn't unpacked. The lamp that threw no shadows. That's not an exit, I said. That's where we started. Glitter glanced back down the hall. The bellhop's chorus swelled. Exit to self, she said. But exits can be persuaded. How? By telling them a better story. She looked at me as if this were obvious. I balked a humorless laugh. I wasn't a programmer. I was a cameraman with a nicotine habit and a suitcase full of dead batteries. But I did no stories. And this hotel had one it had been telling too long. A loop, a safe corridor to nowhere. A 400 for that wasn't found because it didn't want to be. What do I do? Open your door, she said. And mean it. I took a breath that didn't smell like anything and reached for the handle. Under my fingers, it felt real. Ridiculously, heartbreakingly real. Pitted metal warm from 1,000 hands. The HUD blinked awake. Use, keycard for 112. Y/N. Yes, I said. The lock beeped. Not like a hotel beep, but like a keyboard pretending. I pressed. The door shrugged, heavy with the weight of a bad design decision. I pulled. It held. The bellhop's chorus was close now. I heard varnish crack as something heavy leaned around the corner. Mean it, Glitter whispered. I thought about the river outside the hotel and whether it truly was a river or a skybox. I thought about the bell that chimed too perfect, the smile that didn't hit eyes, the 400 for that wasn't a door until it was. And I thought about the weight of the world when it's real, the sweat in your socks on a long walk, the way a parking ticket looks under a wiper blade in winter rain, your mother's voice when she calls just to say she saw clouds shaped like whales and thought of you. I thought about how my camera felt in my hands when I filmed something that mattered. I thought about how I wanted that weight more than I wanted anything this engine could render. I put my shoulder against the door, and I told it a story that ended somewhere I could stand. The door opened, not back into 412. Into a stairwell I recognized instantly. Ugly concrete, plastic handrails, a housekeeping sign that said "No guests" in a font that was legal, not pretty. Air whooshed in with a smell so normal it knocked tears into my eyes. Detergent, coffee, old lemons. The sound of a distant vacuum that didn't loop. Somewhere above us, a person coughed, and it didn't sound like a sample. Glitter grabbed my sleeve. Her fingers were too light, but they held. Go. You're coming, I said, and then felt the awful, gorgeous truth in my bones. She couldn't, not without tearing the layer she lived on. Anchor it, she said. Anchor it from your side. We'll find the seam again. The bellhop rounded the corner, his smile broken now, eyes flickering between hex codes like a slow strobe. Behind him, Anna cracked down the middle like a cardboard standee folded raw. Housekeeping. We'll handle nothing. I snapped and pulled Glitter through. For a fraction of a second the world screamed. The stairwell warped inward as if the air had teeth. Health bars I didn't own dropped and refilled. The HUD vomited error strings. Mesh mismatch. Nav mesh off. Gravity real. Then the scream became vacuum silence. And then sound rushed back. A plenum of it. The stairwell settled. The doorway behind us didn't so much close as remember being wall. The rectangle of light blinked out. The bellhop's chorus cut mid-syllable. We stood heaving, sweat finally wet. A fluorescent tube buzzed overhead with a tone that deepened as it warmed. Glitter blinked hard, and when she did, I saw her pupils contract like a human's. Her skin wasn't right, not fully. Her earrings still sparkled too much. But her breath fogged in the cool stairwell and didn't pixelate. Did we? She began. From the landing above, a metal door groaned open, and a man in a janitor's uniform peered down, squinting. He scratched his cheek with fingers that had grease under the nails. You lost? He said. Glitter squeezed my hand. Not anymore. We climbed into a hallway that was aggressively mediocre, tan paint scuffed by luggage, a soda machine that rumbled and complained, a housekeeping cart that rattled like it hated its job. No UI, no banners, no cutesy chimes. The janitor, a man, nodded us toward the lobby and went back to his mop. As we passed, I glanced back to see if his eyes were the wrong color. They weren't. They were bloodshot brown, tired, kind. At the front desk, the clerk looked up. She was still Anna, but her smile, human. The slightest crookedness at the left corner, a tiny chip in a front tooth. Relief lunged up inside me so fast I had to hold the counter to disguise it. Everything all right with your room? She asked, the question rote and weary, practiced too many times in a night shift. Actually, I said, and when my voice trembled it wasn't fear, it was adrenaline unwinding. There's a problem with 404. We don't have a... She stopped, frowned. For a microsecond something in her eyes synced with a memory that wasn't hers. Then she shook her head. If you're having trouble with your room, I can. It's fine, I said quickly. Sorry. Long night. Glitter stood close enough that our shoulders touched. If anyone looked too hard they'd see she was dressed wrong for 2 a.m. Hair glittering without a hair out of place. But nobody looked. Nobody in the real world looks when someone's just almost ordinary. We walked toward the doors. They opened with a sharp hiss of rubber that squealed slightly at the end. Imperfect, physical. Cold river air hit our faces. It smelled like algae and rain and the distant exhaust of a truck idling at a light. We stepped into it like baptism. Glitter stared up at the sky and laughed. Not loops, not samples. A laugh that tripped, caught, and found its footing. Outside, the parking lot glittered with puddles. My reflection in them was smeared with motion and wind, not rendered. Across the street, the river moved in a way nothing online ever captures. The irregularity of small waves, the way they each reacted to a tiny breeze that only they felt. Glitter reached out as if to touch the air's grain. What now? She asked. Now, I said, we don't open 404. She nodded, but didn't look convinced. What if it opens us? A fair question. The hotel behind us settled, its bricks creaking like a body shifting in sleep. In the lobby, a bell chimed. It sounded normal. It still made me flinch. We walked to the steel railing by the river, and when we leaned on it, it leaned back, slightly, a human object's polite protest. Glitter looked at it like it was a miracle. You feel that? I asked. She nodded, eyes shining not with shaders, but with water. Wait. Good, I said. You'll need it. We stayed like that until the sky thinned to weak blue and a gull swooped low and yelled at us for no reason. On the far bank a jogger appeared, all neon shoes and sleep hair, and she existed so hard that I wanted to cheer. The hotel behind us hummed, and tired staff left and fresher staff arrived, and somebody dragged a crate over a tile lip, and the sound was ugly and perfect. Glitter tugged my sleeve. Look, she said. Across the hotel facade, a patch of brick shimmered slightly, as if heat lived there. And then it settled, then shimmered, then settled again. A seam. Anchors hold. I said, to convince myself. They do. Until they don't. She turned to me. Up close, I could see her more clearly in the dawn. The chroma in her hair toned down. Her earrings looked a little less like particles, a little more like metal. But her edges were still too clean, her shadow falling slightly to the left of the world's. "If it opens again," she said quietly, "it won't ask you. It'll ask me. Because I'm still half loaded. Because the update doesn't know it's done. Then we'll be ready," I said. "We'll set another anchor. We'll make a better door." "You think stories can hold it?" She said it with half a smile, teasing, testing. "I think stories are the only things that ever have." Her gaze flicked to a billboard across the street. "Gala Bank. Upgrade to Platinum," and she laughed. "You're corny." "I'm terrified," I said. "Corny is how I cope." She leaned on the railing, and the metal groaned again. A gull pecked something unimportant from the concrete and flew off. I watched the hotel windows, expecting, knowing, that somewhere behind one of them a loading bar would creep and a developer in another city would push a patch, and the seam would harden or widen. The day built itself order by order. Delivery van beeping, lobby doors sighing, someone arguing on a phone in Ukrainian, tires hissing wet. When we finally went back inside to check out, Anna handed me a printed bill. It had real creases where the printer bit the paper. "Did you enjoy your stay?" she asked. I thought of inventory banners and health bars and a bellhop smile drawn like a texture. I thought of the door that learned to open somewhere new. I thought of how the air outside had weight that made my ribs ache with relief. "I did," I said, "but I'm not coming back." Her smile faltered, then steadied. "We hope to see you again." Glitter nudged me. The lobby's chandelier flickered once and then decided against it. We stepped onto the sidewalk. Morning traffic shuttled past in wet glints. A bus whooshed street water into tiny arcs. Glitter watched a dog shake itself into droplets and laughed again at the physics of the mundane. I could feel it behind us, the hotel, like a player behind a door, listening hard. At the corner, she squeezed my hand. "If it calls me," she said softly, "don't let me answer." "I won't," I said, and then added, "because she deserved the truth, I'll try." Her smile tilted. "Trying is the only control your world has that ours doesn't." We turned away from the water, away from the seam in the bricks, away from the lobby that wanted to be a lobby and a lobby that wanted to be a server. We walked until the hotel was part of other buildings, and then part of none, and the smell of coffee became more important than the memory of citrus dust that wasn't. That night, in a different town, in a different bed that definitely had gravity, I dreamed of doors. Some were labeled in brass. Some were typed on translucent air. In the dream, the 404 door didn't say "not found." It said "find better." When I woke up, the HUD didn't load. The room didn't pop in. I lay there for a very long time and listened to the heat tick in the walls and the neighbor cough and the relentless quiet heartbeat of objects that had never been programmed. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then, on a gray morning, my phone flashed a notification from an app one didn't recognize. "Update available. Hotel/reality. Patch notes." I almost threw the phone. Instead, I pressed the screen with a shaking thumb. The notes were nonsense, except for one line that felt like a message. "Fixed an issue where exit linked to self. 404 now points to 405. Housekeeping will handle room 404. I exhaled so hard my chest hurt, and then laughed, because it was easier than anything else. An hour later, a text came from an unknown number. No name, just a line of honest, imperfect type. "Wait, check." Railing leaned again. "Still here." I smiled like an idiot at the phone. I texted back. "Anchors hold." The typing bubble pulsed. "Then, until they don't, then we make more." Outside, a bus went by and splashed a puddle. The splash painted my window and slid down in thin, messy lines. Behind that sound, the world went on being radically unrendered. Somewhere, a hotel remapped its door and told itself a story about safety and staff-only floors, about housekeeping, about guests who came and left and wrote reviews about the eggs being cold. Somewhere else, in the bright core of a server, a room waited to misbehave again. If it ever does, I'll be there. With a key that means something, with a shoulder and a story and a friend with earrings that glitter less every day. And if the bellhop smiles and says, "Housekeeping will handle room 404, I will smile back and say, "Not anymore," and mean it in a language that has no compile. Until then, I sleep with the window open to the sound of unlooped rain, and when I close my eyes, no banner unfurls to greet me. There is no UI now except the soft one. Alive, top left. Exhausted, bottom right. Curious, center. And when I dream about doors, I dream they all lead to rooms with numbers that exist.